Monday evening, Leapers. This is your host of Life After the Leap, the podcast, Kathy Wright. And I'm here this Sunday with an amazing guest. He's an entrepreneur, he's a director, he's a creative, he's a CEO. He's my uncle, Daniel Betts. He is the current director of the Cincinnati Recreation Commission, and he is here today to talk to us about his life of leaping. Welcome, Daniel Betts.
Well, thank you for having me, Miss Wright, Kathy Wright, my favorite niece. Love you. Glad to be on the show. Been a long time coming too, right?
Yes. Thank you so much.
No, I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Today's guest is Daniel Betts. Daniel Betts is the current director of the Cincinnati Recreation Commission, but he's had a life full of service and interesting leaps. He is, again, the director of Cincinnati Recreation Commission, but prior to that, he's worked in the highest levels of government in places inside of Chicago, some of the suburbs of Chicago, as well as Denver. In addition to being in public service, he's also run several businesses. He's been a heavy real estate investor and has been able to flip lots and lots of properties. And he's also created businesses like restaurants and different stores. He is the youngest of 14 children. And as you can see from the picture on the screen, he was also in the military. I'm super proud of him. He also happens to be my uncle. And due to some technical issues, we missed a little bit of that story. So I wanted to give you some entry points into our conversation. And so here's my conversation with the director of Cincinnati Recreation Commission and a lifelong leaper, Daniel Betts, and here are some of his amazing tidbits to get you started in your life after the leap.
I think it was JP Getty who said, I'd rather, utilize, 10% of 100 people's time than 100% of my own time, right? So at the end of the day, we have to figure out how we leverage our resources, because we're limited as an individual. But then, when it's just like making a tight fist, right? When you ball that thing together, it becomes more powerful. But, a finger by itself can easily get broken. So again, I think this idea of just leaning into being vulnerable and knowing, the first step is knowing I don't know everything, and being okay with that, and knowing that God has given us 2 ears, 1 mouth for a purpose, right? And that purpose for a reason. And that reason, one of the reasons for that is so you could do more listening than you do talking, right? But then as you get that knowledge and that information, we have the power of the tongue that allows us to then begin to pass that knowledge on to other people. And again, like you're saying, whether it's through mentoring other young people, or it's mentoring adults who are coming through your profession, or it's coaching and getting people on the track of discovery around economic development and what that means for them and their own tribe. I think that's all important. But you're right, it does start with one, being okay with being vulnerable. You got to be okay with being vulnerable.
Being vulnerable is so intimidating, though.
Scary.
It's so scary. And but I know that, out of fear, a lot of things like manifest that will positively change the outcomes of your life. And it's just about, can you leverage that fear? Can you allow yourself to be afraid, to be vulnerable, and to do something despite that, do it anyway. Right. How can you do it anyway?
Yeah. And forget how it turns out. Just do it and forget how it turns out. And oftentimes when we take that approach in life, it turns out okay.
Yeah.
It's like fear is really almost unreal. It's imaginary. It's something that it's a real thing only because we make it a real thing.
Exactly. There was a
You know,
acronym that
right.
somebody was using for fear. I forget. I always forget. Like, it's
Yeah,
fear something, but it's all of these, because we have allowed so much information into our brains about what we should do, what we shouldn't do, how it's supposed to look when we do it,
right,
who's supposed to be there, who's not supposed to be there, right? Because we have all of these preconceived notions that we're carrying into whatever space it is.
right,
The fear can really accelerate and keep you from moving forward, right?
right.
I
And
know.
Niche, let me just add this to the equation on it, right? So
Mhm.
it's also this thing that we have to be careful with too. Like the fear we're talking about is what we embody individually, but there's also fear that other people project on you. Like they'll project their fears on you, and that'll keep you from moving forward, and only it heightens your level of fear, right? How many times have you attempted to do something, whatever it was, right? Whatever it
Mhm.
was, creating a
Mhm.
podcast, whatever, right? And somebody within the circle of your network or friend group you shared that with, and they're like, whatever, can you, yeah, why would you do that? Or you can't do that. Like people will tell you what you can't do because that's what they're feeling they can't do. And they're projecting their fears on you. And if
Mhm.
you're not careful, then you're going to end up buying into that sauce, right? And you'll start believing that you can't do things simply because the people. So I say that to say this, right? I say that to say this. We also have to be careful who we allow in the village, in that closer inner circle, because that closer inner circle is so important to your development and who you become as a person. I forget who said, like, raise your hand, one hand, count name the friends on one finger. That's who you is. At the
Oh,
end of the
right.
day, right? Like
Whoever your
that's who you are.
friends are, that's who you are. Yeah.
That's who
Mhm.
you are. I mean, it's just that simple, right? So we
Mhm.
have to be careful. I know for me, I'm intentional about what I allow people, what energy I allow people to speak into my journey. I'm intentional about that because I've had people tell me, I mean, my worst scenario or worst case in that,
Mhm.
Kathy, was a high school teacher, and I never forget her. Um, I acted out in class. So
Really?
yeah, I acted out in this particular class. Yeah, I must admit, in this particular class, I did, and I
Okay.
don't know why I did it. It's so long ago, but I did it. And this teacher, she wrote me up, kicked me out the class, sent me to what we call jug. Jug meant you had to stay at school, the priest with the priest, and they would paddle you if a couple
Oh.
paddles. Yeah, they actually hazing you. I don't know if that's just probably illegal right now.
Right.
Excuse my
Right.
friend. But anyway, she told me, she said, you are going to be dead or in jail by the time you're 21.
Ooh.
And now, reason I say that and relate that to the story, what she did for me is motivated me,
Mhm.
because I took her words and I literally internalized that and said, I'm going to prove her wrong. I am going to prove this lady, like Miss Gibbs. I'll never forget it. I'm going to prove her that I would not end up in jail and I would not be dead by 21, that I would make something of my life. And so, but think about if I was fragile. Think about if I'd allowed that trauma
Yeah.
that she was passing on to me, if I accepted that and accepted the fact that she viewed me for whatever reasons in that way for that mistake, right?
Right.
Um, had I really internalized that in a negative way, my life would be very different right now,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So again, I say that to say we have to be careful who we allow to speak into our life about our journey, because people are operating, from their own pain, and they don't know your journey. They don't know the destiny that you have placed or the purpose you have placed on your life, and so you just got to be careful who you're listening to.
That's very good advice. Very good advice. And I think, I've heard people talk about these stories where if somebody spoke really negatively over their life and predicted they were going to be, something negative, this or that, and how a lot of them were able to take that and use it as motivation, right? As you know, especially when sometimes you're the only one in the room. Like, I don't know how many African Americans were in that she was that were in your space, and she singled you out. I don't know, but I know a lot of times that's also the backdrop of those types of conversations where you're told you're not going to be anything, or you're going to end up in jail. And fighting through that and using it as a motivation is just another sign of like the level of courage you've had to exercise throughout your life in order to overcome those narratives that sometimes people just place on you that wasn't in your sphere at all before that person kind of try to put that in your life.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, it for me, it motivated me versus it, like it didn't, it hurt. I mean, it obviously hurt as a 17-year-old, things like that people say to you, which is why in my life, in my adult life now, I work with young people and have, most of my career, I speak life into young people because and I'm talking about these are kids in some instances where, given the life choices that they're making right now, like real live, real time action that they're or activities that they're engaged in, it's clear that they're headed on the path to that kind of thing, right? Or to something that. But again, my job is not to see their condition and predict what looks to everyone else to be the inevitable, but it's really to talk to them about how to change it before you get there. Because, I had people that did that for me, so, so she wasn't one of them, but I didn't allow that one person, because you're going to always have these kinds of people, I mean, unfortunately, you're going to have people who don't have your best interests and quite honestly can see your future, and devil has brought them in just to kind of block you from reaching your future. So for me, I look at Miss, wherever she's at, may she rest in peace if she's gone. But I look at it from the standpoint that she was a hater.
Yeah. I mean, that's one way to put it.
Yeah, she was a hater.
Yeah, I remember we used to say this in the 80s. You let your haters be your motivators. I don't know.
Exactly. Right.
We was trying to fake rhyme back then. I don't know. But
right.
but yeah. So yeah, I think that's an important thing to note though, because like everybody, people react to those things, and some people internalize them and they never get through them.
Correct.
Right. And so your story is you can take whatever that is, especially somebody who has authority over you in that moment, and hear that, but you don't have to internalize it, and you don't have to let that be your story and let it play out. Right.
That part. Yeah.
Yeah. You can continue to exercise, your authority over your own life and persevere and move with courage throughout. And then that then has made room for you to then do some of the amazing things that you've done. Like we've talked about you working in government in Denver and Illinois, now here in Ohio, but the other side of it is you're also an entrepreneur, like a serial entrepreneur. Like how many businesses have you also simultaneously been running while you've been doing these really big important works?
Yeah, and it's been, yes. So I am, I get it honest. Like I think, and here's what I mean by that. I think like what a lot of folks don't know, and I'm sure you do, but a lot of our family members don't know is that we were my dad's dads and his brothers were all real estate moguls and entrepreneurs, owned insurance companies. Like when it wasn't popular for Black men to own things, right? So we're talking some 40, 50, 60 years back, right? So, but I'm a true believer, like, as there's bad generational curses, they're good, generational curses as well. If they, in fact, I
Well,
don't
promises, maybe
promises,
promises, generational
not
promises.
curses, but promises. I struggle with that. I'm like, yeah, that don't sound right. So promises, generational promises.
Yeah.
And entrepreneurship for us has been a part of that, and I think that's true for a number of African American families in this country, because we've always had to make a way out of no way. Like
Right.
that's just our legacy, right? So for
Mm-hmm.
me, yes, I have gotten it honestly, and I've always been attracted, I think, to entrepreneur endeavors. It started for me kind of, I want to say, very, if I go way back, it's like, a kid cutting grass and having a newspaper route, just to put, change in my pocket and
Mm-hmm.
not have to go to my parents for money. So it started really early on, but then as I became an adult, at 22, at 23, I bought my first property. And again, Kathy, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't even like I didn't have a coach, right? This was like, I just wanted to do it. I thought it was like, man, this was a pathway to building wealth. And so I got into property. My first property was over in Inglewood in Chicago on the south side. The neighborhood was gentrifying. I happened to work for the city. I was a mid-level administrator in the city. And so I saw some things that maybe some folks on the outside of government didn't see in terms of what neighborhoods was transforming.
Mm-hmm.
So looking at some of those neighborhoods, I went in some risky places that other folks weren't willing to go, particularly folks who looked like me. There
Mm-hmm.
were folks who didn't look like me that were buying up stuff left and right. And so I went in Inglewood. I bought a 2-flat, a gray stone. That one I paid $65,000 for. I put $40,000 into it. I kept that building for a year, and I turned around and sold that building for $165,000. Now, when I did that, it opened my eyes up to, hey, this is like for real, right? This
Mm-hmm.
like real estate. Like, I mean, I made 65 grand off one deal, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm 23 years old, newly married, had my first daughter at that time. She couldn't have been 2 years old. She was 1 year old at the time. And,
Mm-hmm.
fortunately for me, my wife and would come over. We worked on that building, evenings, weekends, you name it. But finally got tenants in it. And then, the neighborhood was just rising. It was just rising. So, I got out of it after a year because I realized I didn't, flipping was better than, at that time for me, was better than being a landlord. So I did another 2 deals. I did 2 single family homes, one of which I was fortunate to buy the house right next to where I grew up at. I spent $85,000 for that house. I actually sold that house for about $150 after I put about $30,000 in that. So I made about $25,000-$30,000 off that deal.
Right.
I took the money from that and from the building that I purchased, and I opened up a convenience store. So here's where I think it got a little wild and out of control for me, to be quite honest, and where I learned my lesson.
Mm-hmm.
So I jumped from real estate to retail, and I jumped from real estate being a neophyte. I didn't have the green plan for I didn't have like, okay, this is the blueprint. I'm learning still, right?
Right.
Right. From that, used that money, and then I went straight into this retail operation, convenience store and a metro train station, and I spent $125,000 on a build out for that. I took the money from the property, spent cash to open up this store, and the store did worse than the real estate ever.
Oh, wow.
So the store was, but a learning lesson. Like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
one thing I tell entrepreneurs is that, failure in entrepreneurship is truly, it's not failure unless you're repeating it. Failure, I mean, when you make mistakes in this journey of entrepreneurship, which you are going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. It's just about calculating and being
Mm-hmm.
strategic and cover your risks. That is something that I've learned in this entrepreneurship journey. And so now, just to fast forward out of the real estate, out of retail, I find myself kind of exploring more around the retail, and of course, supporting my wife, who did the mobile wine bar.
For my mobile wine bar,
Yeah,
the Leapers met her last week and learned
great,
about pour. So yeah,
great, great.
and it's excellent business.
Yeah.
Excellent business.
Yeah. And let me just say, like, and I don't know if I'm sure Z shared this in her piece. Part of our idea and concept was just not about, like, this was like a COVID kind of business, right? So it was not just about bringing a trailer to a space and offering, wine and alcohol. It's also about, what we realize is that there are no Black manufacturers in the space of building trailers. So we also thought to ourselves, if we could build our own, then we could potentially take this to scale and build trailers for other people. And so that's still like a part of the vision, right? That hasn't went away, because I can't tell you the number of people who have come to us and said, look, we love this trailer concept. How did you get it built? Can you help us? So I've already kind of mentored this one guy who is in the on the north side of Cincinnati, kind of helped him, figure out where to buy his trailer, where to store his trailer, and then how to get the trailer fixed, right? So, and it is a process. I mean, people see things, well, and this, right? So people will see the outcome, right? And they'll look at the outcome and they'll assume that, oh, you've made it, you've arrived, and you things are just great. And they don't realize the process that you went through to get the outcome. The entrepreneurship is far harder than my job. My job, getting up, doing something that you love, and being able to create my own schedule is easy. To be quite frank with you, the hard part, because I've done both, right? So the hard part oftentimes is like when I had, and I didn't mention I had a restaurant. Like I did a
You did it was jerk.
I had a Caribbean restaurant, fast food.
Yeah, it was good too.
Thank you. Yeah, we got a lot of love. We got a lot of love. I did that in partnership with an old family friend, one of my siblings' best friends, and who was a big brother to me, who's passed me. Ken, may he rest in peace. Good brother, but and taught me a lot. Just taught me, like, I didn't really know anything about cooking when I went into that business. I went into that business kind of like learning, and fortunately I had a partner who was an excellent cook, and we found a lady who Lisa, I love to this day. She was from the islands, and we hired her. And so the other thing in terms of being an entrepreneur is, get a good team. You got to have a good team of people. Your team it will make, what's that old saying? Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Yeah.
So you got to have an excellent team. So I forgot about the restaurant, man. That one was that was work. There's no work like running a restaurant.
That's a hard one.
Yeah, that's how you're gonna wash dishes. You're gonna cook the food. You're gonna mop the floors.
Yeah.
You're gonna play you'll be wear every hat humanly possible in that business, so these days I'm kind of looking at things that are a little bit different, in terms of, I'm excited for some things I'm hearing and wanting to learn more about crypto, and wanting to get back. I certainly want to get back into the real estate. I think I'll always stay close to real estate. I've always been an investor. So I've always, I was early on investing in things. I missed some great opportunities though, because of fear. Again, talk about fear. I remember when Tesla came out, early on, and one of the guys that I was investing with encouraged me to invest in Tesla and encouraged me to invest in Lyft and Uber early on. I'm talking like when it was like they hadn't even went IPO and hadn't even raised money to go to them.
Wow.
I didn't get in. So I missed those trains. But again, life is like that, some opportunities you have to learn from it, right? So now for me is scanning those opportunities and taking more risks. I've gotten a little older now, and the kids are out of the house now, and so part of my not wanting to be too risky back in those days had a lot to do with wanting to keep an income and being able to put a roof over their head and good school districts and being able to put them in the best positions that they could be in. But now, me and Mama are just, kind of enjoying, that empty nester period in our stage, at least the early parts of it. The plan is to be a little bit more risky in some areas where we can be,
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, I forgot about your restaurant too, but
Yeah.
but I mean that that's how many things you've been willing to take a leap of faith on, right? And to try and try your hand at it because you had a passion for it. Like I know you love to cook.
Yes.
I love to eat your cooking.
Yeah.
You can
Thank you.
invite me over for dinner whenever you want.
Right. I should have had you over tonight. We could have did this just right from the couch, but that's all good. Next time.
See how you do me, y'all. See, no, but no. I mean, but it's just in each instance though, and everything you talked about, whether it's moving from Chicago to Denver and doing that work inside of that space, or moving from opening a restaurant or buying real estate, all of those things have some commonalities in terms of how you had to create a mindset or maintain a mindset within yourself of one that was filled with courage, that despite any fear or anything in your spirit that was like, or energy that was telling you maybe you shouldn't, it's safer over here. Yeah. You did the leap and you did it anyway, right? You did it despite all of the other things that may have been narratives may have been playing in your head. You did it despite that. So I'm just, really want to just say, that's really inspiring. It's very encouraging. And it's also, I love that you talked about it in terms of when you did need some sage advice, you sought it out. Like you made yourself vulnerable enough to let somebody tell you, hey, maybe you should do this, or maybe you shouldn't do this, or, and it was up to you at that point to take the advice, to buy the Tesla or, stock, or to invest in this and that. But you did do the important step, which is to seek out that advice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I think it goes back to what I said earlier. It's like, when I don't have the answers, I'm okay with seeking the answers out, either through self. It's always through self, right? But then if I can't figure it out by researching it on my own, I'm going to reach out to somebody that I think would know the answer, or could at least point me in the right direction. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty persistent that way. Like, that's, and I'm intentional that way too. Like, I'm thankful for that intentionality, because sometimes I think that, and it hasn't always been that way. So let me be clear about that. Like, so I would just say for folks who are listening in that, being intentional about your purpose is extremely important. Like, you just got to do it, right? Because, and don't wait for somebody to do it for you, right? Because this journey is so short. Like, I've done things, whether it resulted in a great outcome or not, I learned from it. Like, everything that I've shared with you, I either learned how to do it better, or I learned not to do that again. Right? You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, I feel like I still won, to be honest with you, Niece. Kat, at the end of the day, I feel like it's still a W, because now I know versus not knowing, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Then I also believe that things sometimes, like, I've learned too, because I wasn't always patient, and I used to have this anxiety about being successful and, really making it, whatever that meant. And now I understand that, making it really isn't really about a destination. Like, it really isn't about like for me, making it is really just being able to have a certain level of financial peace, a
Mm,
certain level of, I mean, I think it's just peace across the board.
yeah.
So it's like not necessarily, I don't have to have it all. I
Hmm.
just need to have enough for those who I love and care about so that we're living a quality of life, that we can experience things that, again, could break some of those uh, generational things that we were not able to experience because our parents wasn't able to do it for us, right?
Hmm.
Um, so that's part of it. For me right now at this stage in my life is like, I had, maybe I needed to go through all of that to arrive where I'm at now,
Yeah.
to figure out like, what's that one thing or
Hmm.
those two things that I really want to, because I just tried a lot of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just tried a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and just talking about this now over the call is just like, wow, I did like put myself out there quite a bit, time and time again, and sometimes it turned out great, and then sometimes it just didn't turn out right at all.
Hmm. Hmm.
But
And
that's life, right?
yeah, and I love that you talk about it this way because what ultimately the sum total of all of that experience of those experiences have gotten you to a place where you can live life on your terms,
Yeah,
which is what I think ultimately the leapers inside of the group are really looking for, right? How do you create a life on your terms, right? So much of what we know in regular work can be very dictated, right, to us. And like as we seek to like fulfill our passions and lean into those spaces where we know that where we can create value, like we seek to do that, that creates much more excitement, much more contentment, much more satisfaction in your life when you're able to do that, right? And so, but you got to have the things that you talked about, right? You got to do it anyway when you're scared. You got to have confidence. You got to have mentors. You got to lean into to sage advice and leverage that the best way that you can so that you can have all the experiences that your heart desires. And so I really appreciate you telling us, sharing with us your story of how you were able to do that. I think what you've been able to do, not just in your role as director of Cincinnati Recreation Commission, but in your previous roles, and then also in your ladders of entrepreneurship that you continue to climb, and getting ultimately to a space where you are a standalone, right?
yeah,
Like you're standing alone in that space, at the top, and many people are looking to you to as a role model how to do similar things. So I just want to say thank you for that and congratulate you for all of the things that you've done and sharing your story with us today.
well,
I know.
thank you, I appreciate that, niece. Thank you, I appreciate that.
You're
That's love.
welcome. You're
Yeah.
welcome. It's been so much fun, but I didn't want to go before we get to talk about something that you've got coming up this week, in case people here on the group want to go ahead and take
Oh,
an
absolutely.
opportunity to you know maybe participate and come out and see what's going on. Now this week you've got an event going on.
Yeah,
Uh,
we got it. We got the music. Thanks for bringing this up. Yeah, we got the Cincy Music Festival, first annual Cincy, Chicago, Chi-Town, which is where you and I both are from, and where stepping originated. This form of dance called stepping, which is historically back in the 40s and 50s was the bop, right? So
yeah.
bop just kind of transformed into the 60s, 70s into stepping, and really picked up in the 80s and is now just growing phenomenally across the country. And there is a group that I partnered with here through Pour Mobile Wine Bar, called Elegant Steppers, and they're local Cincinnati group based, Daryl Bourne, really good brother, has been teaching stepping here in the community in Cincinnati for at least a decade or more at Springdale Rec Center out in Springdale. We're going to bring him out and have him in Cincinnati sometime here in the next, I'd say 45, 60 days doing the same thing. It's from our seniors for adults and for seniors. But I want to encourage people to come out to this event. It's going to be a nice event. It's going to be a great vibe. We got some old school DJs coming in. I mean, legends from Chicago. Kevin Neville's, who's like a legend on the stepping scene in Chicago, on the radio, on the smooth jazz station. Of course, most people know Pete Frazier. Pete is one of the few in the stepping community who actually has a video out teaching people how to step. That's how, well, I won't say that's how I learned to step, but I certainly say that buying his video has enhanced my stepping game.
Oh.
So I'll put it that way. So
we've been stepping since we were little kids. So
right. Yeah, you know, stepping is just a part of way of life for those of us who have grown up in Chicago, and really, you know, for me, Kathy, is personal because many of my siblings, you know, they step. You know, I learned from them. I mean, and it's also when you get past that 40 and get into your 50s. This is a great way to do some cardio, to do some dancing, to, you know, to be healthy, you know, as we age and continue to go through our journey. So I'm encouraging people to come out. It's going to be, you know, Music Fest weekend. That's the Jazz Festival weekend, Macy's Jazz Fest. It's a big time in Cincinnati. You and I know because we're always engaged in somewhere in the community out there. So we just want people to come out, day parties, and let me just say that I got Uncle Near's.
That's some good whiskey.
And I encourage people. It's not only great whiskey.
Yeah.
They have an amazing story for the African-American community to really just learn who Uncle Near's and the brand is all about. And so they're sponsoring our cigar lounge. We're going to have premium cigars from Nova. Nova is out of Miami. It's a woman-owned business. Leo. Like killing the game in Miami right now with her cigar business. And so we're pairing Nova with Uncle Near's for the cigar bar. And we're going to have stepping, R&B, and house music from Chicago, which is, again, another thing that just originated from Chicago. So you want to be at this event for sure.
You really do. And I'm going to, just for because I don't know how people can really see, if they can see all of the details on the screen. So I'm going to drop it in under this video so that the people can find out how to get tickets. I have my tickets already. So you will see me there. I just got to get my outfit together.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned outfits, because stepping is one of those things that you want to be suited and booted.
Right. You can't come out for play. You got to be for real.
Yeah, this is a grown folks. This is a grown and sexy event. Yes,
so it's good. I'm so excited that you're hosting that, and it's so it is so you to be doing another event. It's so you, but I'll make sure that everybody has that information tagged right here to the podcast.
Right.
Thank you so much. I have enjoyed our conversation today. I know that all of the Leapers truly appreciate it. It has been an absolute fun, joy-filled time to be able to talk to you about it. Remember, everybody, some of the key things that he talked about is like, having courage, having a plan, looking out and making sure that you are tagging into your network for mentors and coaches, and doing it anyway.
Yeah.
Doing it anyway.
Yeah. Go for it.
All right. Well,
Kathy.
I appreciate you. I love you too. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see you next time. Let me see if I can get my music to play correctly. On, let's see, here it is. Life After the Leap.